performance mindset. Look at all. Getting ready to present at getting ready to start the peak performance. Hi everyone, it's Christine Harrington, the Savvy Sales Lady, and I have on a very special guest today, Danielle Young. We have known each other, gosh, Danielle, how long?
I feel like it has to be coming up on 10 years.
Yeah, well, we did that video in 2016.
7
And
years.
and Danielle is the senior benefits. Danielle, you tell them what your title is.
Yes. No, it's a total mouthful. So I am one of the vice president senior benefit consultants at USI Insurance here in Indianapolis.
And you know, Danielle and audience, we know each other because I was in group benefits and I was in that space, and that's how Danielle and I know each other. She was actually one of the brokers that I used to do business with, her and her mother. And then she moved on in her career, and her and I met at Cooper Hawk last night. And by the way, Danielle, I kept spelling it Copper Hawk when we were texting.
I didn't even notice. That's something I would have done. Yeah, 2 P's instead of 2 O's, totally. Yeah.
Exactly. And so Danielle has really grown into her role as a group benefits leader. And last night we were reminiscing a lot about how things haven't really evolved much when it comes to how group benefits is being sold. And Danielle wrote a very controversial post on LinkedIn, which caught my attention. And frankly, Danielle, I was all over it with a thumbs up, and was so happy that you put this out there. And I asked Danielle to come on to talk about sales courage. Now, courage doesn't mean that it's an absence of fear. It just means that you move forward in spite of the fear. And her putting this out there about what's really going on behind the scenes with all the wheeling and dealing of group benefits, not for the advantage of the employee, things have not changed all that much, have they, Danielle?
No, unfortunately.
So what does sales courage mean to you?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head. I think I shared with you last night. I read a book some years ago called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which is it's a really quick, short read, but it really changed my outlook on how I approach sales. I've been in sales my entire career, and the complexity of the sale continues to increase as my career progresses. But, you know, as a younger salesperson, I felt very nervous, very insecure. And I felt like I was often selling from a place of fear, which we all know what that feels like. We've been on the receiving end of a salesperson who's really afraid. And so after I read that book several years ago and really started to come into my own a little more, I developed more of an approach towards sales that was, as you were saying, it's okay to be nervous and afraid, but eventually you're going to have to pull the trigger, or else you're just in the wrong line of work. You know, that's really how the sales courage thought process came to me. And so in writing this article, I felt like I had so many strong opinions, and anyone in the business who's known me for more than a handful of years probably read this in my actual voice, because I've said these things out loud to many, many, many people. But to have the courage to make it permanent, which is what happens when you post things on the internet, was a new level of bravery, I guess, for me in terms of sales. And I feel like that's something we struggle with in the sales arena, is putting something out there that could be permanent. You know?
Right. It's like everybody's whispering about it all, but nobody is actually vocalizing it out loud on a public platform. And as a result of this post, I know you will, even on the comments, I mean, you got comments from health practitioners, didn't you?
Yes, yes. I got to talk, I've talked to tons of great practitioners all across the country, direct primary care advocates. I've made really great friends from that LinkedIn post, from people who came to me and said point blank, I feel like brokers are part of the problem. I feel like your industry and your profession and your peers are part of the healthcare system's problem. I don't disagree with that at all. But I've had some really great thought-provoking conversations. And it's really made an impact on, I feel like, my identity out in the LinkedIn space, because going back to your question about sales courage, I think one thing that's important is that when you know that you're different from other people in your peers or your competition, that differentiation is so key, even if it makes you unpopular, because there's going to be a tribe that shows up and supports you. To your point about the post, I had a wonderful tribe, practitioners, people who've been in the business like yourself before, old friends, professionals who are still in the business who I haven't talked to in years and years, were reaching out, texting me, calling me, messaging me like, wow, what a 2x4 to the face of the business. And thank you. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Well, and Danielle, for all of the people out there that are not in group benefits, let me explain it this way. Group benefits is a brutal sales business. The competition is fierce, and there's all these backroom deals being done with carrier reps and other producers that, instead of having the focus on the employee, they're focusing on what they can get out of the deal. Am I wrong?
No, I think, well, I know in the business now still, there are a lot of professionals who call themselves brokers. We also call ourselves benefits consultants. I mean, there's lots of terminology that kind of fit the same core competency as a sales professional, which is having an employer client that allows you to be the middleman in brokering all of their healthcare and other benefit associated contracts, including dental, vision, life insurance, disability. And so as a broker, really, when you're sitting in that position, your call should be to serve the client's needs as best as you possibly can, and first, not as a byproduct to your own benefit, not as a secondary to your own financial gain, right? Like, client needs and fits should be number one. Unfortunately, I think what's happened in the benefits industry, and I think it actually started this way, so we're trying to kind of topple our way up and turn it the other way, is that we started in the industry selling pretty straightforward products that didn't have a lot of complications. There weren't many options in the market. I'm talking about the 70s, 80s, Christine, right? Like, there was less to really consult about. And so it just turned into, how quickly can you pass along a product and then gain the result of the commission from it? And how widely can you become a retailer for insurance companies? Because that's what a broker ultimately has been, for not, I won't say the last 20, 25 years, but prior to that, broker was a retailer essentially. So obviously financial incentive as a retailer is just like margin. When you mark anything up as a retailer, you're living off the margin. But unfortunately, I think what's happened, especially in the last 10 years since the passing of ACA, is a broker's job has evolved massively in a really short period of time, from somebody who's a retailer and a product passer along or an informer, to someone who really has to be a consultant. You have to be up to date on legal, tax implications, ACA implications. You have to be a finance person. There are so many things as part of this role. And then accepting an increase in commission year after year because there's an increase in your medical premium ongoing feels like a dirty afterthought, like a benefit that we shouldn't be getting, because our job, again, is to make the client's strategy as waterproof and as tailored for them as possible, right? So now we have brokers that are getting paid the way that they've historically always been paid, which is a percentage of premium. I'm not saying that that doesn't work a lot. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying that that's unethical at all. What I'm saying is that, can we really, as a profession, look at what we're doing and say that we get medical trend better every year at it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's something we can feasibly argue. And I think that there is a good deal of the profession that still leans on that as an excuse to just get an ongoing raise. I'm not saying everyone. I dare even say most. But I think that there's just a very small facet of us as professionals who understand that what we do is knowledge work, not transaction work, and that we need to embrace that and hone our skills accordingly. Is really the long and short of that post. And I did get a good deal of pushback too. I got some comments and some messages that were like, "Wow, I can't believe you think that." So I want to be clear. I'm not saying that everyone who gets a commission check is evil and wrong. I think as an industry, we have room to do better and to define our success by our client success more than we do by dollars per year in revenue or commission.
Well, I left the group benefits arena in 2013 after my dad died. And I don't know if you know this story, but I was at the principal at the time. And my dad was being moved into hospice, and principal wouldn't let me off to be with my dad. I mean, my boss literally said to me, Megan Summers really said to me, well, you can see your dad before you go into the office or after you go into the office. And, oh, yeah, yep. And I did. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I appealed it 3 to 4 different times, went up the ladder. Nope, you can't take off. So I tidied up my desk, resigned, and sent an email to everybody, including the president of principal, letting them know what just happened to me.
Yeah.
And I told my dad that I had taken vacation time. There was no way I was going to lay this on him.
No.
And my dad died 10 days later, and I was with him. Now, this is an insurance company. And believe me, I'm not ratting on insurance companies,
No.
but this should have never happened. And principal prides itself on being work-life balance. Well, how work-life balance is that? Right?
Right.
So after 2013, when I left, I kind of, I didn't really follow group benefits because I was out of that arena now, although I still talk to my friends that were still involved in it. But when I saw your post, I went, thank you, Lord. Finally. And even though I wasn't even involved in it, had been involved in it for 7-8 years, that post really triggered me emotionally, because it was all my frustrations, all the anger I had in group benefits all those years. But what was your final tipping point, Danielle, to put that out there?
Well, I think I shared with you last night, I wrote a draft of it and I sat on it for a couple of weeks, because when I wrote the first draft, a tipping point for me was that I was competing with another broker who had a long-standing relationship with a prospective client of mine. And watching that relationship, even though there were many, many fiduciary decisions being made in the benefits program that were not benefiting the client, watching that go down for probably the 100th time in my career, watching myself lose to somebody who I knew wasn't doing the best thing for the client, just ticked me off. I mean, just really put me through it. And so I sat down and put it all out there. And then what's funny too, I don't know if I shared this with you, is when I went to share it on LinkedIn, it was like way too long.
Was War and Peace?
Oh my gosh, mostly war. Yeah. And so I had to sit on LinkedIn and kind of curtail it down and really kind of make sure that I was very succinct with the wording. But I think for me, it was, to your point, like the short answer to that question is losing to a bad broker for the 100th time really put me over the edge in terms of why. And why don't we talk about this more openly? Because we have conversations. We've had 100 of these conversations. I have conversations like this with broker peers of mine, consulting peers of mine. It's a thing where it's like, well, if someone doesn't speak up and say something, why isn't this part of the public discourse about the problems with our industry? People are quick to point out the problems in any industry ever. And with brokers, it feels like we're all kind of sitting around keeping each other's dirty secrets. You know what I mean? And it's like,
right.
Well, people are quick to point out what's wrong with law and medicine and veterinary medicine and, the Department of Public Works and politics. Like, we're quick to criticize everybody, but where's our healthy criticism, our own self-reflection and as a sales profession? in a consulting profession. Where is that? We needed that.
Well, let me ask you this. Since you have put that out there and was a wildly successful post, both positive and some negative, how has that changed your mindset moving forward?
I think I'm less afraid of what people think. Yeah, I think I'm less afraid of being, like I said, anyone who knows me read that post in my voice because they've heard me talk about it before. And before that moment, I think I was so private about my misgivings. And since then, I think I'm less afraid of being vocal about my misgivings, because at this point, if you're friends with me on LinkedIn, you know how I feel.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, actually, we had carrier reps. I won't name who it was. We had carrier reps in a couple of weeks ago. And I noticed a couple of the carrier reps were like standoffish from me. These are men I've known for a long time. And they were sort of like distancing themselves from me. And I came up to ask a question. They're rolling out a new product. And I came up and was like, "Hi, guys, good to see you. So quick question." And they were like, and I could feel that, like, that sense of like, oh no, she's gonna tear it out. And I'm like, well, I'm not mean. I'm just, that's how I feel. But so I do sense a difference, I think, in my my lessened reticence to ask questions and to be vocal. But then also I kind of feel like some of my peers in the business are just worried if I'm going to come for them next. I'm not going to make a habit of it.
Right. Well, Danielle, I so appreciate you taking the time to be on today. I know we're out of time, because I really admire you so much. And like I told you last night, everybody, I knew her in like the beginning of her career, and she has just risen to the top. She's someone that instills trust, and she's working for your behalf no matter what. Danielle puts the client first. And I really admire you for that post. And I admire you also, Danielle, because you didn't get sucked in and decide that you're going to play the game like all these others. You stuck with your principles.
Thank you, Christine, for the kind words. You're too kind. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Well, I really enjoyed meeting you last night. Of course, this isn't going to be the last time. And, and I just really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on, Danielle.
Absolutely. We'll have dinner at Cooper Hawk soon.
That sounds good. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. And remember, sales is a journey, not a quick trip around the block. I'll see you next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and we'll have lunch together. Bye-bye.